What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to 2023 NFL Weekly Picks. Coming off of opening weekend, very exciting opening weekend, very successful opening weekend for my Falcons. Obviously, 16 teams are 1-0, 16 teams are 0-1. And there's many teams that look to stay undefeated, many teams looking for their first win this week. Realistically speaking, for some of these teams, this might be their last week of actual hope before their season's over. Got some good matchups this week. Obviously, I think the opening weekend excitement has it's gone away a little bit, and we're starting to settle in. I think you're going to see games in more so the way they should. They're going to go the way they should go. But you're still going to see upsets. You always see upsets. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. So for the results so far, last week, I went 11-5. Considering it's opening weekend, and I think really the only games I blatantly missed, I would say, as far as upsets happening, were the Bucks game, because I didn't see them beating Minnesota. I didn't pick them to beat Minnesota, at least, and the Lions on opening night. The other three losses I had were the San Francisco game, the Raiders game against the Broncos, which I thought could have gone either way, and I picked the Giants to win. How much of a fool do I look like there? But outside of that, pretty good week for me. Locks of the week so far, I'm 1-0. Upsets of the week, 1-0. Got the Rams upset. Was one of the few people to pick that, so felt pretty. I didn't expect them to win the way that they did. So, but knowing they won at least, that pretty good feeling to know I picked that game. An overall record, since we're only through 1 week, 11-5. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. Thursday night football, the Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia coming off of that win, that close win in Foxborough versus the Patriots. Vikings kind of stunned at home, I guess you could put it, versus Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield. And it's a short week. Obviously, I think that's a good thing because you can't just harp on that, but you got to go up to Philadelphia. It's the home opener. It's prime time. They're going to be fired up. In almost any other situation, I would like to take Minnesota. I got to go with the Eagles here. I think they're going to win, and I think they're going to win pretty convincingly. I think Hurts is going to have a good night. I think it's Kirk Cousins in prime time. It's going to be another rough showing from him. That Eagles defense, they really did wonders last week versus New England, forcing those turnovers. I could very well see much of the same. I think obviously Jefferson is going to get his, and he's going to eat. But outside of that, man, the big concern for Minnesota is that rushing attack. I mean, if Alexander Madison's the only back that's really even known from your team, then I think you got some issues in the long run. And you're going to have issues going into Philadelphia because they're going to get pressure on Cousins, Darius Slay versus Justin Jefferson, and obviously that Eagles offense going up against that Minnesota defense. I think Minnesota, this could be a little closer game than I'm saying. I'm saying 29-15. Maybe it's a little closer because maybe the Vikings defense is able to stand out and be impressive. But honestly, at this point, I don't see it. I think the Eagles are going to have a pretty good night here against Minnesota, pick up the win, go to 2-0. Minnesota still going to be looking for their first win. They dropped to 0-2. Going into Sunday's action, AFC North matchup, Baltimore at Cincinnati. The Ravens, I mean, it was a very sloppy win, but it was a win last week versus Tennessee. And Cincinnati, I mean, I knew Cleveland was going to win that game, but I was not expecting it to go the way that it did. Oh, crap. Yeah. I thought I did something, but I was not expecting that game to go the way it did in any measure. They're back home. It's their home opener. I think they're going to get on track here. Baltimore, I think they still got a lot of stuff to improve on, especially with that offense. I think that defense could definitely shine, but also Cincinnati's hungry. They've been punched in the mouth. Now it's time to see how they will respond. And I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to come out. I think that Bengals offense is going to have a nice day overall. I could definitely see the defense. I think the one thing that the Bengals could struggle with at times is defense, but here it's their home opener, and the Ravens still got stuff to clean up on with their offense. I'll give this one to Cincinnati here. 27-16 Bengals win. Both teams are 1-1. Next game, the Seattle Seahawks were, to some people, not me, stunned by the Rams. I was stunned at how the Rams won and how much Seattle laid an egg at home. I thought it would be a close game. Versus the Detroit Lions, and we all know the story. Lions fans probably actually feel like they won the Super Bowl. And it's their home opener. I know Ford Field is going to be rocking. I think everyone knows. However, I want everyone to keep this in mind. At this point, it would have been 10 days since the Lions played and probably got their biggest win in years as a franchise. Overall, I think I'm not going to say Detroit's going to necessarily come out just sloppy and they're going to lay an egg, but Detroit is on upset alert. Seattle had their wake-up call last week when the Rams went in there and just stole the show. And now you're going on the road. You're facing a Detroit team. Seattle is hungry for that win, I'm telling you. And Detroit, they are coming off one of the biggest wins that they have had in probably the last few decades. And this is a young Lions team. You don't necessarily know how they're going to bounce back and be ready to play another game, even at home. I think it could lean into more of a high-scoring affair. This is my upset of the week. I think Seattle is going to go in there, and they're going to bring the Lions back down to earth. I think the offense is going to go in there, Geno, DK, Tyler Lockett, and this is not Kadarius Toney. This is not those Chiefs receivers. This is not the Chiefs without Travis Kelce. From my understanding, DK Metcalf is playing. Lockett is playing. JSN is going to play. I know it's going to be tough, but I'm going to say Seattle goes in there and gets it done versus the Lions. They get back on track. They get their first win of the year. They hand the Lions their first loss of the year. Both teams 1-1 after this. Next game, kind of a game no one really cares about, but it's a duel between two rookie quarterbacks that could be seeing each other, depending on the circumstances, for a long time. Could be the first of many meetings between Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud as the Colts go to Houston to take on the Texans. Indianapolis actually looked really impressive last week. You can definitely argue that between Bryce, well, we know what happened to Bryce. Between Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud, you can really, I guess, kind of debate who had the better game. But Anthony Richardson was a playmaker. Against Jacksonville, who's probably the best team in that division, he made the plays. And it was a close game. It's just Jacksonville put away at the end. All these teams are going to have their growing pains with rookie quarterbacks. However, I like what they're building in Indianapolis, and I like what they're building in Houston too. But in this one, I think the Colts are coming in more prepared. I like them more. They seem to be more comfortable. Michael Pittman had a nice game last week. I could definitely see him having a nice game this week as well. I'm going to say that the Colts go into Houston and pick up a win here. I still think the big concern for the Texans isn't CJ Stroud, but it's just that offensive line. I just think they got to get it shored up. And with the Colts still having DeForest Buckner, they're going to be able to wreak havoc there. And I think that's going to be enough for Indianapolis to go in there and pick up a win, go to 1-1 on the season, get their first win with Anthony Richardson. Texans will still be looking for their first win with CJ Stroud. Next game. Chicago at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's home opener. They stunned Minnesota last week. They came out, and I thought maybe it could be a close game with just because of the weapons. But Baker did not look bad last week by any account. He looked pretty all right. It's the home opener. It's against Chicago. Chicago, obviously, they got smacked in the mouth by Green Bay. They always do. I still need a little bit more to believe in Tampa Bay. I know it's the home opener. It's the first home game since Brady left. I think Chicago, I think Tampa Bay, yes, obviously they're 1-0, but it's what I say with Detroit. A lot of these teams, are they complacent or are they going to be hungry for that next one? Chicago, I feel I can go in there and beat a Tampa Bay team. I think it's going to be a close game, but Justin Fields, he can escape that pressure. Obviously, Tampa Bay can bring that pressure, but Justin Fields, he can get out of the pocket. If you can get him out of the pocket and you can get DJ Moore and Mooney and all those guys involved, Chicago has weapons, even though they don't use them a whole lot. If Chicago can use their weapons, which I think to an extent they will, I'm going to go ahead and say they pick up the win here. I think they get their first one on the year. Both teams will be 1-1 after it. I definitely think it could go in Tampa Bay's direction. Probably in terms of picking, this was the toughest game to pick all week just because I know it's Tampa Bay's home opener and they got to be fired up. But Chicago also, I think a lot of these teams are very hungry for their first win, including Chicago. And I'm going to say they go down to Tampa Bay, give the Bucs a little bit of a reality check. Both teams 1-1 here after this game. Next game, Kansas City and Jacksonville. This could definitely, in my opinion, be game of the week. Jacksonville, I love what they're doing. Took them a little while to get going. Calvin Ridley had an amazing game last week, who I got on fantasy. So I need him to ball out all season. You know, obviously how it ended in Atlanta, not how I wanted, but I'd be lying if I said I was rooting for Ridley to absolutely fail. But Kansas City, the big story is them. Is Kelsey going to play? Obviously, they got Chris Jones back. Now they got to get that second piece to the puzzle. Is Travis Kelsey going to play? Amid all these rumors he might be dating one Taylor Swift, I guess we'll wait and see. But it's hard to believe Patrick Mahomes is going to drop to 0-2. Even in Jacksonville, it's their home opener. It's going to be a close game. I love the Jacks to cover. I believe they're underdogs by like 3.5. I love them to cover here. But I think Kansas City's going to get it going. I think Kelsey's going to make all the efforts to play. And I think they're going to be able to come out on top here 30-28. So, next game. Now, I'm going to talk about this game tomorrow. I'm not going to go too deep into this. Obviously, it's the Falcons and Packers. Falcons breaking out the throwbacks. That logo isn't displayed here, though. I'm not going to talk too much about it. All I'm going to say, Green Bay coming down to Atlanta after getting that win in Chicago. They haven't been at home yet. I'm going to go ahead and just get out of the way. I'm picking the Falcons to go 2-0. It's going to be a close game. It could lean into a low-scoring game, but I think it might lean into more of a higher-scoring game for these two teams. I'm going to go ahead and say our Falcons win, go to 2-0, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But yes, Falcons win, go to 2-0, 27-23 win. Next game, Las Vegas at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, obviously, they had an opportunity when Aaron Rodgers went out last night. They didn't take it. Josh Allen made some key mistakes, and the Jets ended up winning. It's their home opener. A lot of teams' home openers this week that were on the road week 1. I think they're going to come in here. I think they're going to bounce back big time. Obviously, the Raiders as a team, I think it's, obviously I think they were excited to get that win versus Denver. It's always exciting to get a win versus a divisional rival. But Buffalo, they got to get back on track. I'm going to take this as the lock of the week. I think Buffalo gets back on track. I think Josh Allen has a nice game here. Diggs. The Raiders really don't have many people in that secondary, and they have a terrible O-line. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one to Buffalo here. Next game, Tennessee's home opener in Nashville. They're hosting the Chargers. The Chargers, they could have had it. They had the ball with an opportunity to win. They didn't take it last week versus Miami. But Tennessee, they had a close, nail-biting, tough defensive, low-scoring loss versus New Orleans. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions there. I don't think it's going to get any better for Tennessee, though. Herbert, I think, is going to come in and have a big day. I think Eckler could. I saw he's injured, so he's questionable to play. But I think Herbert with those weapons will come in here and have a big day. I'm going to take Tennessee to win. I'm going to say this. If they keep going down that trajectory that was shown with Ryan Tannehill forcing balls and them turning into interceptions and turnovers, do not be shocked if you see a Will Levis or even a Malik Willis in by week 8 or week 9 there in Tennessee. So now moving into the 4 o'clock window. 4:05, the 49ers at the Rams. Both early NFC West matchup. Could it matter? Are the Rams back? Obviously, that guy, I don't even know how to say his name, but I just claimed a waiver for him on fantasy. He had an amazing game last week that no one saw coming. Obviously, there is no Cooper Kupp. And the 49ers, I just think they typically go into SoFi, and outside of that NFC Championship game, they dominate there. And I think that's no different here. I think the 49ers will go in there, and they're going to have a pretty easy time with the Rams. I think after that win in Pittsburgh, that was a statement win. And I think the 49ers are going to continue to keep it rolling here. Brock Purdy is back. I mean, I think, okay, is it just a fluke? From what we saw versus Pittsburgh, it wasn't a fluke. This guy's the real deal. He is the quarterback for that system, the Shanahan system. And I think they're going to come in here. I think they're going to roll with McCaffrey and Ayuk and all those boys, Kittle, Debo. That defense, obviously, they're going to wreak havoc. 49ers pick up the win here, go to 2-0. Next game, this I guess you could kind of say is really going to be that sloppy game of the week that I don't know many people are even going to be interested in. But it's the Giants at Cardinals. The Giants, I don't even know how to put it on Sunday night. In Arizona, I mean, come on. I think the fact that they were able to have a close game versus Washington, I think it more just so speaks to maybe how underwhelming Washington could be this year. But I think the Giants will go in here. It's probably going to be a sloppy win, but I think it's going to be a win because let's face it, I think the Cardinals are getting very few wins this year. So I think that's just the way you have to look at it. So Giants, nonetheless, will be 1-1 after 2 weeks. All right. A game that has been flipped upside down, I guess you can say now after last night. The New York Jets, Zach Wilson starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers torn Achilles out for the year, going to face the Dallas Cowboys team that they proved me wrong last week. The Cowboys look like they are absolutely going to dominate some of these teams this year. Now, I will say this. I do like what the Jets defense can do. I think that if they were to come out firing, they could potentially make this a close one. But it's the home opener. It's in Jerry World. The Cowboys are rolling coming off of that week 1 win. Gotta take Dallas here. I don't even think it's really going to be that close. This isn't a verdict on the Jets season after 2 weeks. I just think I do not like this matchup here with them having to go into Jerry World. I think even with Aaron Rodgers, they lose this game. Zach Wilson, I think it's going to be worse. I think the Cowboys roll here. And then Washington at Denver. This is probably going to be an underwhelming game to watch. Washington, they barely squeaked by with a win versus Arizona. They do have that great front four, though. Denver, Russell Wilson looked good in the first half, but they couldn't pull it out. With that being said, I think Denver does get their first win here. I think that they're going to come out. It's in Mile High. First 2 weeks of the season in Mile High, you can't start 0-2. You got to come out. You got to get a statement win here. And I think that's what you're going to do. You're going to win versus a Washington team that I don't think a lot of people know what to make of. But I think the Broncos, nonetheless, win is a win. Probably going to be a low-scoring affair, 19-16, as you see. But Denver gets the win. Sunday night football. Now I can get excited because I think this is going to be a very exciting game. I like Miami and New England on Sunday night. New England's defense, even though Philadelphia had a time with it last week, they still made plays. Mac Jones, I think you saw the problem was having a defensive guy at offensive coordinator. Mac Jones passed for 300 yards last week. I think this is going to be a shootout. And New England could very well win this in Foxborough. But Tua, Tyreek Hill is focused. I mean, I don't really know where you get that motivation from, but at the end of the day, hey, do what you need to do. I think it's going to be a great game. I don't think it's going to be like last week Sunday night. I think we're getting treated to something here this Sunday night. And I think Miami goes in there. I think they'll pick up the win. It's going to be a nail-biter. I think it's going to be a shootout, and New England could pull this thing off. But Miami going there in there with Waddle and Hill, I think that could definitely make all the difference. I did just realize, though, Mike Gesicki is now on the Patriots, so that could be a little something to look out for. So, but I'm going to go ahead and say Miami picks up the win here, 35-29, kind of a high-scoring game. So we have two Monday night games, Monday night doubleheader. Not the traditional 7:15 and 10:15, but 7:15 then 8:15. First one, NFC South matchup that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on. New Orleans at Carolina. Carolina coming off of that punch in the mouth to us week 1. Bryce Young, he had his welcome to the NFL game. And I think he's going to get that last week wasn't a joke. This is really what the NFL is. Now, I could definitely see. I'm going to pick the Saints to win and go to 2-0. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I could see at times Carolina getting into this thing. However, I think the Saints are probably going to jump out to an early start. I could see Carolina coming back into it as the game progresses. But the Saints, Carr, they do have those weapons. They do have the defense that won them that game last week versus Tennessee. I think the Saints go into Carolina, and I think they get a 2-0 start. I know the Saints have had trouble in Charlotte the past few years. And this is a game Carolina might end up winning. Personally, I kind of hope they do, because if we can win our game, then that gives us a little cushion in the division. However, I just overall think, man, when looking at the circumstances, I think the Saints, they're more prepared for this. They got the veteran quarterback. Bryce Young is still learning. He's going to make those mistakes here this week like how he did last week. Even with it being Carolina's home opener, I got to give it to the Saints in this scenario. And final game of the week, the second game of our Monday night doubleheader, Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got punched in the mouth versus San Francisco last week at home. Back home in Heinz Field, or whatever they call it. I'm still calling it Heinz Field. Versus Cleveland, who punched Cincinnati in the mouth. I think there's a lot going on with Pittsburgh. But primetime Heinz Field versus the Cleveland Browns. I think Pittsburgh's going to come out and shock some people, and I think they're going to pick up a win. I think it's going to be low scoring, but I think Pittsburgh's going to do just enough with that defense and TJ Watt. They're going to be able to wreak havoc. I think they can shut down that rush. I know Cam Hayward is injured and he's out, or it looks like he's going to. I think he was ruled out. But I think Pittsburgh, it being Heinz Field, they're looking for someone to step up in a divisional game. Someone is going to do it, and they're going to get a win. They still have George Pickens, Allen Robinson isn't anything special anymore, but he can be serviceable. Najee, you have to see him get back on track. Pickett, he's got to show people something. But I think Pittsburgh's defense is really going to be what can carry them to victory here versus Cleveland in week 2. So, with that being said, these are the picks for week 2. Every week, Tuesday, this is how it's going to go. I would like to get the time cut down a little bit, but I guess around 20 to 30 minutes, I guess not bad, but would like to get that time cut down a little bit. But overall, I'm ready for another exciting weekend of football. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about the Falcons-Packers game. Until then, see you guys next time.